Fitness of the prosecution's head to hold office. Our reporter Aldrin Sampear has been following the court proceedings for us. Aldrin, good afternoon. So two arguments really before the ConCourt today, the one being the matter of the former NDPP Ngqolisini and the other being the future of Shaun Abrams. We've had some interesting arguments today, namely around defending the Constitution and getting an NDPP that the public can have complete confidence in, especially with the possibility that we could see a former president prosecuted.
Well, definitely. That's the emphasis that has been coming from all 3 or 4 councils that have argued so far from the different civil rights organizations why which NDPP it should be who makes the final decision on President Jacob Zuma, former President Jacob Zuma's prosecution. We also heard from Kasek, who's making the argument that it shouldn't be Shaun Abrams who makes the final decision, and saying that that final decision must be taken by another NDPP, considering that Shaun Abrams has been embroiled in this controversy and also taking into consideration the findings of the High Court. This is something that has been advanced now in the closing arguments as well, where you heard Justice Kachalia making the argument and saying to one of the councils that you can't say or argue that Shaun Abrams has aligned himself to President Jacob Zuma when that argument has not been tested, and that's a ruling that has been handed down by the High Court. So chances are that ruling may be struck off the roll when the court finally comes to a decision whether it is Shaun Abrams who remains in office or whether it's Ngqolisini. On Ngqolisini, here's the argument. The argument is that Ngqolisini has accepted what, quote-unquote, amounted to a bribe. Why did he accept the 17 million rand? The argument also from the different councils is that there should rather be an acting NDPP who's appointed. One of the councils, Butlander, also saying that it would be extraordinary if if the current president, that's President Ramaphosa, has not yet considered who he thinks would be suitable to take over the office of the NDPP.
All right, I heard you say their closing arguments, so have they wrapped up there? And if they have, what's the sort of time frame when we can expect an outcome from the justices?
Well, we've heard from the different civil rights organizations. They've made their case. Now we're waiting for Ngqolisini, who will be arguing why he should be reinstated into that position of NDPP. So his counsel will come forward and make that argument. And then on the other hand, we'll hear from Shaun Abrams, Shaun Abrams' counsel is also representing the NPA, who have also made the argument that there was a vacancy when President Jacob Zuma appointed Shaun Abrams into that position because Ngqolisini had accepted the 17 million rand golden handshake. Although it was unlawful, that does not mean that there wasn't a vacancy within the office of the NDPP. And one thing that we can expect Shaun Abrams' counsel to argue is that, considering that Vusi Pikoli as well, the previous NDPP accepted a 7 million rand handshake, that means that all other NDPPs appointed after Vusi Pikoli's appointment, which includes the likes of Nqasane, that their appointment as well must then be declared unlawful. Those are some of the arguments that we'll be hearing, but quite interesting hearing from Justice Kachalia, who made the argument and saying that if you look at Ngqolisini, if you say that President Jacob Zuma was conflicted in appointing Shaun Abrams as NDPP, then one can make the same argument in saying President Jacob Zuma was also conflicted when he appointed Ngqolisini, because it was Jacob Zuma who appointed Ngqolisini while these corruption cases were still hanging in there. And Kachalia also going further and saying that Ngqolisini has disqualified himself from making the final decision on whether President Jacob Zuma should be prosecuted or not, because in his court papers he had called the president, or the former president, an utter liar.
All right, Aldrin, thanks. We'll leave it there for now. Aldrin Sampear just giving us a breakdown of what's been happening at the ConCourt. We'll get more from him coming up in our later bulletin.